welcome to Nacht Waffen Pilot with Penny Bradley. I'm having trouble with my voice today, so Miles is going to have to do most of the talking. My guest today is Miles of Miles Moon Bases, and I have a bio on him. Miles is a lifelong experiencer. In 2007, he had his first memorable close encounter of the fourth and fifth kind. Prior to the encounter, he did not use computers and was not aware of this phenomenon, but always knew he was different. He was always an empath and had telepathic abilities. After an NDE in 2014, his life changed completely. He himself had changed and was able to do things he once struggled with. He's what some would call a walk-in. Among the list of many things, Miles also has the ability to view into other past, present, and future reincarnations and simultaneously existing realities and timelines. He is also a sky and moon watcher and has found many advanced structures in and on the moon. I have several friends who are anomaly hunters, and that's, I think, what he's describing. Welcome, Miles.
Thanks for having me on. It's been a while. I've been wanting to get on for a long time. I love the intro music.
Yeah, I have been really happy with that. Kevin Estrella from Pyramids on Mars wrote that for me.
Really?
Yeah, we had an episode where some dude from Vietnam tried to lay claim to it. We had to establish copyright for Pyramids on Mars.
Wow.
That was an original composition for me. And he always blushes when I call it Rammstein meets whale song. But I have no idea how he does whale song on a guitar, but we're here to talk about you.
Oh, he did that himself?
He did that himself. The drums,
that's pretty badass.
The drums are on a machine.
Yeah, drum machine. Yeah, I have one.
But the guitar parts he does all himself.
That is pretty badass. He should do a music video.
He's got, I believe it's 4 albums out now.
Yeah, if he did a music video to that, then you could like have that in the intro.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that'd be pretty badass.
Oh yeah, the original song is like 6 minutes long, and it's
awesome.
Incredible. So I'll send you the link for the whole song, and I'll tag it on to the video when I upload it.
Yeah, definitely.
So
it's weird. I have a microphone, and then I have a motherboard for the microphone where it's got all the effects and everything else. Well, it has a power button, red, and then it turns blue when it's on. Well, I've never had it shut off completely. Like there's no red light, there's no power, and then I'll press the button. Now it's completely dead. It was turning on for a second, then cutting off. Now it's literally no power.
Welcome to Nacht Waffen Pilot's world.
I've never had that happen. I mean, and the thing is the power jack is linked to the computer, so it's getting its power from the computer. So that there's no way it shouldn't be getting power. It's a USB cord that plugs right into it. Unbelievable.
We have a lot of things happen. I shared a link for one of the shows from Facebook to a friend of mine on MeWe, and all the script came up in Chinese.
Wow.
So yeah, I have all kinds of crap.
That's crazy.
when you consistently try to speak the truth,
Yeah.
crap happens.
Yeah, I've had stuff happen, but this is probably on the top of the list right here. Yeah,
Daryl, is this new?
Oh, hell no. No, anything that's possible is possible on this show, and it will happen on this show from consecutive power outages, or you may have to, what's the word? Update your computer 5 times. Yeah, okay.
We had Zoom decide to update, and we had to switch to Skype one show.
Jeez. I mean, they don't give it a rest. They do not give it a rest.
Nope.
And it's that I was trying to explain to family members the other day that Google, if we take a trip anywhere and we leave out of, Daryl knows, the DMV area, get tails, I know what a tail is. We get tails all the time. That's really annoying. Really annoying.
Oh, we had this guy that was sitting across the street. Okay. Those of you who live in California know this. Pacific Bell bought AT&T in the late 80s, early 90s. There has not been a Pacific Bell since then. But we've had Pacific Bell trucks sitting across the street playing with the telephone lines every day for months on end. Finally, Lou goes over there, and Lou's my partner. He goes over there and tells the guy, well, if you're going to hang out here all the time, you might as well build yourself a shed so you can have air conditioning. That was the last time they were there.
Well, they're probably there. They just changed their the skies there. Pacific Bell. I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Yeah, but that's what's on their truck. We have it's a router. It's a building 3 blocks down the street, and it's where all of their terminals come in. And one of the guys told Lou that they had 5 panels in there, and 2 of them were burnt out, and they were rerouting everything through the other 3 because they're planning to switch to 5G, and all of the wires will be obsolete at that point. So they're not bothering to update anything. So we switched to another company. But the locals here refer to it as CIA Central.
Even the locals know.
Yeah, even the local. Oh, where I live, people are considered to be backwoods hillbillies by the town people down the hill.
Yeah.
But we're more like conspiracy central.
Yeah.
So we're very with it about a lot of things. I can talk to some of the neighbors about what my show is about, and they're like, cool, we're gonna watch. And
Yeah.
I get comments from them once in a while.
Well, that's good. You got the whole community backing you up.
Yeah. My doctor watches the show.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it is. It's cool. At least I'm not having to pretend anymore. It was getting really difficult to pretend to be a normie.
I'm in an all Hispanic community, and when I have the window open so I can smoke, and they all think I'm crazy anyway. So I just do my thing. Everybody, yeah. my wife said that like the kid has a friend who's like in elementary school, and she's like, my wife told me, she's like, oh, she's scared of you. I'm like, why? I'm so nice to everybody. I said, it's only when you do certain things, you mess with my family, that's the only time I get a little nuts. Other than that, I'm nice. She's like, well, they think you're intimidating. I'm like, I don't want the kids to think that. Anyway.
You're in. You're intimidating. I've never thought you were intimidating.
I don't think so. But I don't know. I think it's because like about a year or so ago, there was this creepy guy that hangs out in the neighborhood, you know, bums beer and smokes off people all the time. He was getting into it with my 5-year-old, and then he walked into the laundry room when she was in there. So my wife came down and said something, and I went up there. I was actually making a YouTube video, and they came down and said something, all panicking. So I got up and I went up there, and I didn't know it, but they were having, I guess the soccer team had just won or something, but they were also doing a memorial for somebody that died in a car accident, DUI or something. Anyway, I don't know. There was like freaking 100 people up there, and I went up there and hit the guy and went back home and finished my video. And I asked the girl which one it was. So I think that might have creeped her out a little bit. But I'm always nice to her when she comes over here. I don't know why she acts like that. Anyway, but yeah, I was telling the wife that because the thing with my Rumble, my Rumble account, it won't let me make a payment. It keeps saying confirm the email verification, and I'm not getting it.
It did that with me. You have to confirm that that's your email before it will accept money.
Yeah.
So if yours is shut down or blocked or anything, then you need to open a new one.
Yeah, that's what I had to do with YouTube. Yeah, I had to start a channel all over again.
Yeah, well, that's what's going on with Rumble, is you're going to have a actual email that you can receive emails in it and use. If you have to use it just for Rumble, then use it just for Rumble.
Well, this was my backup email. Well, no, I haven't used that. I haven't tried. The one that's linked to it is my original email, which isn't working, but it won't let you go in there and switch to another email. You got to open up a whole new account.
Well, if you haven't paid any money yet, it's just
they won't let me. I'm like, damn, you don't even want your money?
It's just okay. For the audience, the people who have been listening to us ramble for 15 minutes. Okay. This is Miles Moonbases. He had a podcast on YouTube for years, and YouTube decided that he was persona non grata and just dumped it all unceremoniously. And I'm not sure you had backups for everything.
Yeah, I had a backup, but the way I look at it is, you know, they deleted over 200 videos, and I'm not gonna support them after they did that.
That isn't. You have the videos, so you can put them on Rumble.
No. All of the lives I did, I should have recorded them and I should have saved them, but I was, 24 hours a day, I'm cranking out videos, and, I was focused on putting the content out daily, and I just, I should have done it, but I didn't. So,
okay.
But we're getting started over on Rumble. We're getting everything going over there, and I don't have to worry about them. I don't have to censor myself. I didn't realize how programmed I was, to the point where I was speaking to people in public and I'm censoring myself,
Yeah.
And then once I got on Rumble, it took me a few weeks to get in the flow of speaking freely, but then even still in the back of my head, I'm like a little paranoid, like, who's hearing this, who's documenting this? Who's keeping track of it?
Everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, reality is if it's on the internet, it automatically goes to the NSA. Everything since 9/11 is captured by the NSA, and they share it with anybody and everybody.
They're right up the street. They're about 5 minutes. I could throw a rock and hit them from here.
Okay, I have seen the Fort Meade complex, thankfully from the road and not in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a pretty intimidating site. But actually, they're storing most of it in their computer facility in Ogden, Utah.
Well, they have I don't know if Daryl knows what I'm talking about. They have the world's supercomputer here in Maryland. I can't remember if it's Upper Marlboro or Landover, it's somewhere over there, but it's the giant underground supercomputer.
Well, it's not the only one. The one in Ogden regularly overheats and uses enough water for cooling that it could supply an entire city. So it's got a pretty decent sized facility as well. So everything goes to the NSA. Everything that has been on the internet since 9/11. So when I came on the internet, it was 2004. So everything I have ever uploaded, said, even started to type because they do keystrokes. Everything is at the NSA. So at some point in the future, when they decide to go through all of this stuff and look for a reason to put us in prison,
Yeah.
they will have it, because most of us had no idea this was being recorded.
Yeah, I think that's more or less one of the reasons I still watch what I'm saying, because that thought is in the back of my mind, you know. But at the same time, I think they know that I'm not worried about doing time. I've done time my whole life. It doesn't bother me. Well, it does bother me. I got, but some people, they put that fear in them,
Yeah.
And they've done that to me before. I've gotten threatened with 20 years before, so I don't know. There's some things I don't talk about.
I haven't been threatened with prison, at least at this point. When my memories were activated by the NSA, the team leader spent almost 2 years teaching me how to be a dissident and not be arrested. And he went through a lot of basic legalities, things that I had, as I was a truther and I had no idea these laws were in effect. So I follow those rules almost to the letter, because I know if Werner spent the time to teach me that it mattered.
Yeah.
And Daryl knows Werner. So he was an Air Force major. And he was out of Alexandria.
Okay.
Virginia.
Yeah. That's my neck of the woods.
So when an Air Force major takes the time to teach you how to do stuff, you listen. And I've been following that. I was doing pretty good until 2019, Facebook decided to permaban me. And I was offline for a couple of weeks, as far as social media. And I established myself on MeWe, and I already had Twitter. But because I talk about the Germans in space, Facebook labeled me as a hate crime.
Yeah, I got banned from the other day. I got a 60-day ban, first one ever on Facebook, from the anonymous Facebook group.
Oh no.
I'm like, I laughed. I took screenshots of it, and I'm like, I post my videos to probably 30 or 40 groups at a time. And none of the other groups, I'm like, am I banned from Facebook or just this group? And it was just
That's
that
the group.
but out of all of the groups, nobody else reported me, but anonymous, the anonymous We Are Legion. They banned me for.
They're pretty pissy about if it's not one of the anonymous paste bins. Then
They usually let me post everything else, but this one was I'm not going to say. Are we on YouTube?
Are we on YouTube, Daryl?
Yeah, we're on YouTube.
All right.
I don't care.
I did a video, MK Ultra and the incident that happened down in Texas, showing proof that that it was in fact that. I came across information in a video discussing Columbine. Remember Columbine? That was the very first. And they said that it was a I don't know if it was Air Force or Navy. They were all base babies, and at school, all of their parents were in the service. And then it went into great detail on all of that and explaining it. And normally I don't put stuff up unless I'm pretty sure that it's true. And I mean, this showed all of the information and paperwork backing that up. And anonymous, for some reason, anonymous. That tells me that it might not be the real anonymous group. It's probably a knockoff.
Anonymous was a collective that was decentralized. The good news was that there was no leader that could be subverted. The bad news was that anybody who claimed to be it could claim the name. So there's a lot of groups out there that claim the name that are doing their own thing instead of following what the collective was about. I was considered a journalist in the collective. I am not a hacker.
Right.
So
I have a friend. She's retired from there, but she's pretty cool over there in Australia. But she said she had gotten out of it. I think that's why what you just said.
I was a programmer back in the 70s when it was still punch cards. So my skills are seriously outdated.
Yeah.
So, but I understand enough to know what they're talking about, but not enough to participate.
Yeah.
So I sympathized with a lot of their goals. But whenever the FBI started targeting anons and anons who exposed rapists, bragging got more prison time than the rapists did, a lot of people left. It was just too dangerous. So, the anons had a ethical component where they were protecting victims. And for some reason, the FBI thought that it was more dangerous to protect, to expose rapists than it was to be a rapist. So that's where our country is right now.
It's pretty messed up where we're at with everything.
Yeah. So
I'll get to the good stuff here. I've been, ever since you asked me to come on the show, I've been trying to think of how I was going to go about presenting things. It's not so much the stories, but with you, I wanted to do something that I hadn't done before and explain everything from the very beginning. And it's a little difficult because the beginning goes back to the past and then up to the present and then to the future. Everything kind of bounces back and forth. It's hard to explain. So
I understand. My life's like that too.
Yeah. So yeah, but a lot of people don't understand when you say that. They don't understand what you're talking about. But yeah, past, present, and future all exist at the same time. And
Mhm.
so like
It's like a river where you have the stuff in the mountains, you have the stuff in the plains, and you have the stuff in the delta, and they're all happening at the same time, but they're very different parts of the river.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like kind of like a, I don't know, I call it a grain of sand in the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like all the like when I was younger, they had me in special ed, but for the younger people watching, special ed back in the 90s wasn't like what it is now. Like and I was in Northern Virginia, which DC was 20 minutes, 15 if you drive fast. And so growing up, most of my friends or the people that I knew had a family member that worked in DC or in Arlington. So that was like, you know, and then they worked weird hours. Like they didn't know what their parents did. They're just like, oh, they work in the city, but they always had the house to themselves. They were always alone. And we didn't, you know, then I didn't know any of this. So that's what I mean by going back in the past is like, now that I know everything that I know now I'm going back to things that happened when I was younger that I didn't understand. And I'm like, oh, that was this, or this was that. And I, you know, and like when I was in, so I was in special ed, and most of the kids there, their parents had, you know, high clearance jobs. Like they didn't even come to like the parent meetings or whatever, you know, or if their kid had problems, you never saw their parents ever. And some of these kids, so like elementary school, they had these two things called the booth. That's what we called them. And yeah, my wife gets upset just when I talk about it. So I don't talk about it much, but it's called, they were called the booth, and there was two of them. There was two of them next to each other. And one of them had a small bulletproof glass window, like about like that big. And the other one had a bigger window that was a little bit lower. And when one of the kids would flip out or have a mental breakdown in class, they had I think they had walkie-talkies, if I'm not mistaken, some kind of communication. I'm pretty sure it was it was walkie-talkies. This was like when this is when walkie-talkies first came out. Pull my shades down here. So somebody would flip out, and then then the teachers or whoever was available would come in and restrain you. And then they knew pressure points, that they were trained with these pressure points and restraint. So they would restrain you and bend your arm in a weird way. And then, you know, they would do the pressure points.
You know, as a parent, I would be suing them.
Yeah, they quit. They shut down that method. What, could I sue them now, all these years later?
There's probably a statute of limitations on them, but you could look into it because that's abuse.
That's like PSD type stuff. I would think
that's abuse.
Yeah, and then
now in my day, they used to take you to the front of the room and spank you with a ping pong paddle.
Yeah, my mom's told me about that. Or some of them would have those what
Board of Education.
Well, that flat board that they used for one of those games. That game. There's some like English game. There's some English game where they use a flat.
Cricket.
Yeah, yeah, and I've heard of them having those with holes drilled in them.
We
I heard it
called
hurt.
that the Board of Education. My
Yeah.
mom had one of those.
I heard the ones with the holes hurt a lot more.
Yeah.
So so what they would do, they would restrain you, put you in these pressure points and drag you down the hall. And it was called the quiet room. And they had a few desks in there. There's like 1, 2, 3 desks, and then the booth. And if you're really flipping out, they would throw you in the booth, and then it locked from the outside. And they'd keep you in there, as you know, until you calm down. But if they didn't like you, sometimes you'd stay in there all day, you know, in these booths. And they were a little bit bigger than a telephone booth, like maybe like 2 or 3 telephone, but about 2, probably 2. But the thing that I look back now is a lot of the kids that were in there, they were either emotionally, it was ED and LD, emotionally disturbed and learning disability. So you had people that were emotionally like messed up, and I was both. And then you had these super smart kids, and these are the ones whose parents worked for the government. And they were like elementary school and middle school, but their energy was, when you talked to them, it was like you were talking to a super smart, like 30-year-old, 30, 40 years old. These were like grown people in kid bodies. And I didn't know that then. I just considered them weird, you know?
Yeah.
But now looking back on it, like there's this one kid, he lived in the mansions where all the Redskins players lived. I know because he rode the same bus as me. I still talk to him. And this guy was like 6 foot tall, you know, big. I don't know if he was Spanish or what, but he was like, you know, he was dark complexion, and he didn't talk. That was why he was in there. He didn't speak at all, like at all. And apparently this kid hadn't spoken a few years. And, you know, he was big. So, no, you know, he's in middle school, 7th, 8th grade, and the kid's 6 foot tall, probably 180, 200 pounds. And I was always nice to him. And I was determined to get him to talk. And eventually I got him to talk, and he talked to me, and he was obsessed with soap. Like I said, like he'd always have soap with him, and he'd always smell it. And then if I saw him outside of school, he was in the soap aisle. He still has an obsession with soap. But I got him to talk, and the teachers came up to me and they're like, what did you do? How did you do that? We've been trying to get him to talk for years. I'm like, I don't know, I was just nice to him, you know, and it like blew their mind, you know.
Why should he talk to somebody that isn't nice to him? Come on.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know what they were doing, but you know, I was just nice to kid. I still talk to him. And you know, but there was multiple kids. I was always friends and stuck up for the kids that had these that were like older than they appeared. And for some reason, I always gravitated towards them, and I was always nice to them. You know, there was another kid I knew that I was good friends with. He was autistic, but super, super smart. And I'd hang out with him outside of school. And he ended up moving to Florida, but his dad did some computer stuff for the government, and they had stupid money. I'd go over there just to like eat good ice cream and watch cable TV, you know?
Yeah, we didn't. We couldn't afford
you
that
know,
either.
yeah, we had we had like 3 channels, I think, and I'd have to go on the top of the roof and move the antenna to get channel 20 and 50. But anyway, so you know, I went through that, and then I was in special ed the whole time. Middle school, they had quiet rooms, but they didn't have the booths anymore. And you know, I got into trouble. I got into a little bit of mischief, you know, more or less getting bored and occupying my time, getting in trouble. But when I hit middle school, I knew that the earth was not what they claim it is. I had a lot of questions, and everything that they were teaching me in school, they thought I had a learning disability. But what it was looking back now that I know what I know, but I didn't know it back then. I'm like, something in the back of my mind wouldn't let me learn what they were teaching.
Okay.
Like literally the switch was turned off. And if it was something else I was interested in, I'd learn it like that. But like with school, and then something in the back of my mind also told me, you don't need to know any of this. You're not going to need any of this later down the road. And it was just like one of those voices in the back of your head. I think it was more or less myself, or maybe something else. I don't know.
Yeah. That age group, my father was emotionally and mentally abusive. He was not sexually abusive. Okay.
Yeah.
But he was, you know how a narcissist will love you up and then destroy you, and then, well, what's the matter with you? I was just kidding. That was the way my father was. And that's why I don't have much of a sense of humor now, is because every time he would just cut me to the quick verbally, he would follow it up with, well, I was just kidding. So
There's always a little bit of truth in everything. That's what I always say.
he would say it absolutely stone face and even tone. And when I got hysterical, well, I was just kidding. No, you weren't. You were being mean. And so that I buried myself in schoolwork rather than have to deal with him.
So you didn't know, you didn't have the freedom to express yourself, and you didn't know when you were going to say the wrong thing.
Right. And by the time I was in high school, he was a heart patient. And if you know anything about heart patients,
Oh yeah.
it's every time they have an angina episode, it's your fault. You did something to trigger it. And you can't go anywhere or do anything because they want to go with you, but they can't because of their health issues. And it's like, you're supposed to stay at the age they were when they had the heart attack, because their life stopped, therefore yours has to. And we were in a religious cult, and he was not only my father, but my pastor. And that gets real interesting, because at 19, he decided I was an old maid and married me off to another preacher. So yeah, this was, the things that happen to kids that are different are not cool at all.
Yeah.
And, where you experienced the booth, I experienced being spanked in front of the class, and then going home and telling my father about it and being spanked again. And then he would come to the school and tell off the teacher. And then I had to deal with the humiliation of he had harassed the teacher.
Yeah, so I gotta work on that. Like, I don't know. I do that, but I don't think to that extent. Like if my kid does something, she's in a situation where she's the only white kid in school that's dominantly Hispanic. So
my kids grew up in that in Fresno.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Forget you're in California. So yeah.
I'm in California, yeah, where nobody has the majority. So
yeah,
if you live in a poor part of town, I had these 3 little blonde boys, and they were the only blonde kids in the class. So anytime there was trouble, they knew if they were involved.
Yeah, like what they're doing now, which I don't agree with, is when she sticks up for herself, she gets in trouble. and it's you know, like she got suspended. She's, you know, in elementary school and got suspended, and they said that she had spit. And I'm like, you know, she knows not to spit. So like a lot of times I'll chew her out, you know, I'll chew her out if she doesn't stick up for herself usually. You know, I try to teach her not to cry a whole lot. You gotta be tough around here. So it's kind of a, you know, to be loving, but then teach her to be tough at the same time. I gotta balance that just right. Cause if you do too much of either one, you know, you can cause damage, you know.
Having grown up in California with a father like mine, there are times when nothing a kid does is right.
Yeah.
And people need to start accepting that kids are kids and they're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And kids are human beings, and there are a significant number of human beings who enjoy tormenting others.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact,
There's a lot of those.
I'm going
Yeah.
to be doing a short on my own channel sometime in the next couple of days about people who have been, let's call it what it is, knifing me in the back since I had surgery in December.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go through the list and say,
That's how you do it.
I'm tired of it. I blocked 2 of them. I found out today one of the others had blocked me, and the other one had the gall to call up my, well, not call him up, but text my live-in and say, tell Penny she has to come back on my show.
Jeez.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Even if we were married, Lou knows better than to order me to do anything.
Yeah.
He's the guy that comes up and stands beside me like men do with each other. And he says, I know you really want to do this, but I think you ought to rethink it.
Yeah.
That's the approach he takes. He never tells me what to do.
Yeah.
And for this guy had such balls to tell Lou to do that.
Oh, he said that to Lou.
He said that to Lou.
Jeez.
And Lou had me read the text, and I could see where Lou told him, I'm not going to do that, and she wouldn't mind if I did.
Yeah. Lou's awesome, man.
Yeah, Lou is the most cool dude I have known in a very long time.
They're hard to come by.
Yeah, they are.
So yeah, where was I? So
middle school.
So middle school, you know, I skated, you know, did regular stuff. And this is something that I'm only going to mention on here. A lot of people don't realize in the UFO, SSP community, the contactee community, more particularly the contactees and SSP community. The people don't realize that these programs and contact, the ET contact and these secret programs, they don't discriminate. So, you know, I hear, you know, somebody get put out because, oh, this person has a record, or, you know, they're an addict. If somebody had too clean of a record, I would honestly be a little suspicious. But this affects all types of people on this planet. Like,
well, I had goody two shoes programming.
Yeah.
I was literally a church mouse.
Yeah, but I've spoke with you. I've spoke with you and you know.
Yeah, I do have stuff in my life, yes.
like you remind me of somebody that's been on around the block a few times. Like it's, you know, I talking to you, like, you know, you're hip to everything. Like I can talk to you like I would talk to somebody I know that I've known for 20 years that runs the streets. Like, you know, your shit.
Well,
And
I'll put it this way. When I divorced my first husband, I lived in the baddest part of town in Fresno. And the local police had abandoned the area, would not come even if you called them.
yeah, Fresno, yeah.
And a mafia capo moved in across the street from me. And one of his guys fell in love with me because I was a divorced mom with 3 little boys, and I was doing my damnedest to raise them right, in spite of everything going on around us. And the guy fell in love with me, and we ended up getting married, and I didn't know he was a hitman when I married him. Boy, was I in for an education.
And you just said it, and that's similar to what I'm getting ready to say. Like, it's almost like we get put in these situations intentionally, either to wake us up or train us in some way, because I was this is something I have not mentioned on any other channel, not even my own, because, you know, for certain reasons I can't really say a whole lot. But I was a regular kid skating, listening to heavy metal music. And one day I met this guy that moved in the neighborhood, and he ran a particular street organization. And this was at 13. Okay. Some would call it a gang, but this particular thing was an organization. And I'm just a regular kid at this point. And then all of a sudden I get sucked into this world, and I had no idea. Like, and then it wasn't like I was in a bad, rough neighborhood. This was in Northern Virginia. I'm in Annapolis, Maryland now, but my mom's from here. And then my family, my dad's side is from Northern Virginia. But I got pulled into this, and it's like the odds of that happening were pretty freaking slim. And I had no idea what I was getting into. And once you're involved in that, you can't walk away from it. There's only one way out of it, you know?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Those types of organizations, even having been married to him and divorcing him because of his adultery, I still have a watcher.
Yeah.
Because under their rules, I'm one of their widows because he's dead now. And so there are rules I have to follow. And if I don't, then I end up dead. And so far, they've been really good to me. And so I have no serious complaints.
That's pretty cool that they support you in what you're doing. You know, you're really blessed that they're supporting you behind this, because, you know, you can get pretty dirty in this game, you know, and it's pretty cool that they're giving you the go ahead to do everything.
Well, they're just sort of watching what I'm talking about, and as long as I'm not talking about them, they're okay.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I have no serious complaints about them, and the guy that they've assigned to me is really cool. So.
But yeah, I got involved in that, and from 13 to my 20s, and then something happened, and my particular what's the word to explain it? You have the whole organization, and then you have sets in the
cell
chapters, different chapters. They go from state, and then they go to city. You know, it goes from neighborhood to city to state. to and then you start getting they even go outside of the US, so then it goes global. But yeah, I'm not going to mention exactly what it is on here because I don't,
Okay.
They actually quit keeping the files, or they claim they did for the Virginia area. So they closed the books where they had open files on everybody, and they closed that a few years ago. So I want to
But
keep
that
it.
doesn't mean that the folks keeping an eye on those groups have.
Yeah, especially with everything going on right now.
Yeah.
So like I got pulled into this, and really I don't regret any of it because it made me who I am today. And it strengthened me a lot, but I had to go through a lot of pain. Like I did not have a typical teenage childhood. I was incarcerated starting at 13 and then all the way for over 20 years. Like since I've had my family, it's been 2014 was the last time that I did any time. So the reason why I'm telling people this is because I'm painting the picture so you can see I'm not your typical contactee, abductee, whatever you want to call it. I'm not your typical one. Like I have not been doing this for a long time. So I was in my 20s. I was getting ready to have my first kid. The mother of my oldest, I have three kids. Well, I had a set of twins, but one of them passed away. So, technically I have 4 kids. I still count her as a kid, but she was 6 months. They were twins, but she had left me. I relapsed, and then she had left me. Long story, but the key one is the mother of my oldest. I was running the streets and doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing. I did not use the internet. From childhood, I hated computers. You couldn't pay me to go near one. It was like something in my brain. Like if I'd get near one, I couldn't be near it very long. It was almost like something in my mind, because my grandfather on my mom's side was like, oh, you need to, computers is where it's going to be at. And he was saying this in the 90s. And he's like,
He was right.
yeah, here I am, but he said it all the way back then. So also when I was in school, I was looking for signs. I'm like, there's got to be more to this. I'm like, what is this? From birth, I had the question, who am I? What am I? What is this place? What happened? It's almost like amnesia. And it's like you're trying to remember, but you can't.
Yeah.
And it's been like that. It's been like that from like, I'm talking little, like as far back as I can remember. And then my dad worked. He was a single father. It was just me and my dad. My mom, I don't want to say too much, but she had some issues, mental issues. She was always my dad always said, anytime you want to see your mom, you can go up there. So it wasn't like one of those things. Everybody looked out for everybody. And, but my dad worked a lot. My grandparents helped raise me. And they were military. My grandfather, I can't say too much on here. That's one of those things that something tells me you can't, you can't say this or you can't say that. But so like with him, I can't really say a whole lot. Usually if they're still living, you can't say anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but he was retired airborne. Special forces, and he's never talked about what he did, and he doesn't like talking about it. He doesn't talk about it, but how some people tell stories about when they were over there. He doesn't
Yeah.
talk about anything. What he did tell me was he was the first division when they first created special forces. He was the first unit that when they created it. And he did tell me that like he had to go in there and wipe out everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody.
Everybody, yeah.
And that's why he does, you know.
My partner Lou was a contractor for DOD in Vietnam.
Yeah, so he saw it. That's people don't understand when they first created it, all this in DOD, that was like early years. They had them doing some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
Like really, really, really fucked up.
When we're in groups of veterans, he doesn't claim to be a veteran because legally he's not,
Yeah.
because he was DOD instead of the armed forces. And
Right.
so he's just standing there being quiet, and they look at him and they go, "And what were you?" And he says, "A contractor for DOD." And they all step back 3 feet because they're scared of him.
Damn.
So, you know.
You never know it looking at him. He looks the kindest, he's the kindest person, man. You would not know it.
He was in his late teens when he went. He spent 1.5 years in Nam. He came back and he has spent the rest of his life trying to make up for what he had to do there.
Yeah, that's rough. That's rough.
There's a lot of men from that generation who are doing exactly the same thing. They're trying to make up for surviving because the rest of their unit's all gone. Lou is the last of his unit.
Yeah.
Only 2 of them came home. And the other guy killed himself. So
yeah, my wife, like I guess her childhood love or whatever, guy lived down the road from her. She said she probably would have married him, but he went. She grew up upper middle class, so it's kind of hard because I grew up the opposite, and there's so much stuff she doesn't know, and I'm having to like school her, especially where we live. I'm having to school her on everything, and it's rough because she's one of those people that has to see it and experience it. I can't say, oh, don't do this.
Oh, she has to learn it the hard way.
Yeah, so I got to sit back and watch and wait for her to catch up,
Yeah.
But she supported me. She saved my life one time. She's the one that brought me back. It was, let's say it like it is. I really don't give a shit. It was an overdose. And she barely drank. She might have a few drinks if she had went out to a bar, but she didn't do drugs, didn't drink. And she started dating me for some reason. And at this time, the mother of my twins was pregnant, but she left me when I relapsed. But what I said was I was done at that point. But so I knew I screwed up and I didn't want to be doing it. I don't know what happened. I was staying at one of these houses. They're called Oxford houses. And if you're
I haven't heard of those.
Well, they have them here in the DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And if like you're sober or you're down or luck or whatever, there are these houses that you have to be sober, and the rent is little. Like everybody splits the rent, so you end up paying like $100 a week, but you have to be sober in there. So I was in there, and I'd been at the Salvation Army program. I was living there because I'd just gotten out from doing a year. I did a year and got out, and I was at these programs getting myself together. Salvation Army, that's rough. They feed you really good. They give you housing and take you to football games and concerts and plays, but you work for free. You get paid a few cents a day, and you're working in their warehouse. And I'm telling you, like, you think donations, when you're donating stuff, you think that that's going to people? Shit.
No.
I watched, and we were right next to Arlington. Okay. So they were getting like donations. Like I saw big money items going through there, and they were using these machines to bundle them. And we're talking about 1,000-pound bundles that were getting shipped off to all these different places. But they called him the, it was something military that they called.
Yeah, they use military terminology.
Yeah, I can't remember what the guy was called. So I want to starts with a C, I want to say.
Captain?
No, it was something like that. But the guy wore the white, and he had the gold things on there, and
Commander?
something like that.
Okay.
It'll come to me here in a minute. I got a brain fart. But so you'd get up in the morning, and then you'd have to hear this guy preach. He would read from the Bible.
Oh no.
He'd read from the Bible, or he would have one of his right-hand men get up and read from the Bible. And then after he was done reading from the Bible, then you go to work in the damn workshop. And they had people separating everything, electronics, clothes, all the departments were separated. And then they waved you down with a metal detector when you went out.
To make sure you didn't steal from them.
Yeah, but that, people had their methods. I mean, stuff still got out. I didn't feel bad about it because this guy that had a house paid for, like somehow it was written off. The guy had a big ass house, all this shit, all through the Salvation Army. So when I see them at Christmas time, I'm like, shit, you ain't getting none of my money, because I know what they're doing. It's slave labor.
I have real issues with most of the charities because they give so much to the administration and so little to the people it's supposed to go to.
Yeah, it's bad. They feed you good though. They did all kinds of things, but the work was like slave labor, and I'm like, what is this? So, but so I had met my wife, the mother of my twins that was pregnant at the time. She was really somebody walking by here. Hang on a second. Sometimes people walk by. I have the window open, and then the steps to the apartment. So the steps are right outside the window. So I'm facing the window when people walk by to go upstairs. That's what I said. People, they think I'm crazy here. So, anyway, what the reason why I'm explaining all this is because I tell my story, but like I said, I'm going to go in depth with people on your show for the first time. I'm going to go in depth with everything. So I had twins on the way while I was in this Oxford house, and the people there, I had made the mistake of telling people what I used to do and what I used to deal with and where I used to go. I usually don't talk.
NA meetings.
Yeah, well, if you're in this place, you're supposed to be going to all that stuff. But
Yeah.
I was in one of the bad houses. I was in a house where everybody did whatever the hell they wanted, and it wasn't being properly ran.
Okay.
And they kept bugging me and nagging me because they wanted some. They knew that I had a good connection, and they kept bugging me. And then one day, the mother of my twins was really hard-headed, like not hard-headed, but like tough. And it was like her way or the highway. And so we bumped heads all the time. And then she would go.
There's a lot of people like that.
Yeah, like we had a spiritual connection, but when it came to like, we bumped heads. We were both alphas, and like we could sit there and talk on the phone for hours. But when it came down to like, real life stuff, it got, and she could go, months, years without talking to you, not flinch. She quit talking to me, and she would quit talking to me for weeks at a time. And that's one thing that bothered me, because you don't know what they're doing. Your mind starts telling you shit, you know, it starts lying to you, saying, oh, whether they're doing this and what if they're doing that. And my mind would mess with me back then. So I fell victim to these people that were at the house, and I ended up relapsing. But immediately I knew what I did was wrong. I knew I screwed up, and I immediately checked into a rehab. Like, it wasn't even, I'd say maybe 2 weeks. And then I went and checked myself in, but she still wasn't talking to me. So I'm just like, so at that point, I'm like, you're not supporting me when I'm doing something like this. You know, I understand you're upset, but something like jail, rehab, stuff like that, you know, that's when you're supposed to support your partner the most, you know? And that's when you know who's really there for you at the worst times, or when you see who's really there. So long story short, I met the wife, and I was having trouble finding a place to live, and I ended up moving in with a guy that was a dealer, and you know, he ended up luring me back in, and I had overdosed. And the wife was there, and she had a child, a young child, but I guess her parents, like, she took CPR or something for classes for having the child. And when I overdosed, she's the one that brought me back to life. The guy was like, oh, I'm not giving him mouth to mouth. So he was gonna let me die. And this was the second time that this has happened to me while I was living there. The other time, a friend had brought me back, and then way back when I was using, way back, I died a few times, and normally I wouldn't mention drug use or anything else, but like I said, this you know, this does not discriminate. You know, you got SSP people, you got contactees that are all walks of life, because the ETs are studying all walks of life. And I almost think, because it's almost been told to me, that from childhood, I had drugs on my mind from childhood, before I even knew what drugs were. And it was almost like, this is what you're supposed to do. Like something was studying drugs or some shit like that. It's complicated. I can't even put it into words. But the reason why I say this is because I was in elementary school. I didn't even know what drugs were. I wasn't around it. I didn't watch it on TV, but I had it in my mind the whole time. And then when the mother of my oldest, this is where I said it goes back and forth. That was in 2014, but I had died a few more times. That was only twice. I think I've at least 7 times that I can remember, for multiple reasons. And when she brought me back that last time, I came back different. Before, or maybe they turned the switch on. Remember I told you that switch was, I came back. I was able to do things I couldn't do before. Before, I had a short attention span. I couldn't focus. I could not do anything with electronics. You couldn't pay me to go near a computer, let alone work one. It was like the computer switch was off. And then when I came back that last time, my grammar, my speech was different. Before, I had a little bit of an accent, you could tell I'd been around the block a few times, you know what I mean? And, I came back, my speech was different. My thinking was different. And even my wife, that's why, she's got her mental problems. She's very sensitive to frequencies. and
Mhm.
spirits and things like that. Very sensitive. So like she'll get entities will get, I think something takes over her and then will mess with me. So she'll do things to get me to get violent. And then I get violent and then they turn the switch off and then she's like crying and shit. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
really fucked up. Whatever does this, it
When I was-
really pisses.
When I was
Huh?
in my 20s, I had issues with violence, but my family had handled things violently. And it took me into my 30s to break that conditioning. But
Yeah.
I had to work at it.
My family wasn't violent, and that's the strange thing. But I had this violence, and my family told me stories. And when I was in preschool, I got what's the word when you get kicked out of school completely?
Expelled.
Yeah, I'd gotten expelled from preschool because I shoved a girl's face in the mud.
Mm.
Like shoved her in the mud, I guess, where she couldn't breathe or something. And then when I was still young, I don't even know if I was in school yet, but the girl that lived down the street from us, I locked her in a wooden chest.
Mm.
And then when I was at day, I've never told anybody this because it's so fucked up, but you know, I know that you'll understand, or you might be able to shed light on this because I've never understood it myself. But then when I was in day, my dad didn't have a whole lot of money, so he'd have to pay. I had to go to daycares, but it wasn't like daycare centers. It was like people doing it out of their house, you know?
Okay.
And like I would do things to the smaller kids for no reason, just to see them start crying. And now that I'm older, you know, it upsets me. Like I'm getting tear up just thinking about it, like what I did, but I don't know why I did all those things back when I was a kid. And then when I got older,
You froze up.
when I got older, I had this, it was a switch. And I was always afraid that I was going to, I don't want to say it on here, but, you know, like end somebody completely. And so sometimes I would fight and I would get beat up. I knew what I would do. So a lot of times I would lose the fight because I knew what I was capable of doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I used to do
all
the
that.
same thing. I would end up in fights
So
because
yeah,
in California,
all of
I
that.
was in schools where everybody, I went to the labor camp schools. And that means at that time frame, we had the braceros, and either I'm offline or you've frozen.
Yeah, because we started talking about that.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you
Can you hear
now.
me?
Now, when
As soon as we talked about that.
when I was in elementary school, I went to labor camp schools, and these were the braceros kids. This was a state program to bring people from Mexico and points south to handle the crops, because Americans would not work
Yeah.
that labor. And so I was in their school, and it was like 15% of us were white. And my father was racist. And so I had heard that at home, and I would come to school and I would meet these kids, and I just didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it took me a while to figure out people are people, and that no matter what we look like on the outside, we all have the same basic desires and needs. And it took me a while to figure that out. Probably about by 5th grade, I had it together. But before that, I was a real bitch. And I
Yeah.
look back on some of the stuff that I was doing then. I went to a party in 5th grade, friend's birthday party, and I'm sitting there telling the moms how I'm going to build a hydrogen bomb to destroy the world because I was so unhappy. And damned if those parents didn't think I was smart enough to pull it off. I met one of them when I was in Fresno. And I ran across her at the mall, and she was like, "Oh my God, you're that kid." And I'm like, "Don't worry, you know, I outgrew that stage." And she says, "Oh, thank God." And I'm like, "What? A 10-year-old tells you this and you think that?" And she said, "We thought you were smart enough to do it."
Do you know they made a movie about exactly what you said? It's called Symphonous. It's spelt weird. Symphus. But it's called, but translated, it's called The Myth. And it's a Korean show that's on Netflix. I'll send you the link, but it's about time travel. And the one kid starts this nuclear war, but he's able to jump back in time. And then the other guy created the time travel thing. But the thing they use to travel back and forth looks exact. The Hadron Collider looks exactly like it. And I'm like, shit. And they're telling us something here. But the guy was in elementary school, and the kids were the kids called them weird or whatever. And the one guy was nice to him that created the teleporter eventually. But then he ended up joining the other kids and talk shit about him. And the guy said that he was going to build a bomb. Anyway, you should see it. It's exactly what you described. I thought of when you said that.
Wow.
But Korea has been putting a lot of stuff out there lately. All of a sudden, there's all these people think because they got slanted eyes that it's Chinese, but it's not. Like, I looked, the Koreans are the ones that are exposing the truth, and they're on Netflix and stuff. Like, they're not Chinese shows. I looked, I'm like, why would the Chinese be exposing all this? And I looked carefully, and it's Korean. So I don't know.
A lot of Americans don't know the difference.
Yeah.
That frustrates me. But yeah.
But so
what happened with your near-death experience?
Well, the first one that I had, it was strange because I had legal troubles, and I ended up in Jersey City, 2012, the same year as Hurricane Sandy, and I was there when it happened, and it was always somebody talking me into doing something again. Like, usually I wasn't doing anything. It was always, I got around the wrong person, whatever. So I was up there, and I ended up doing something, and I told the people that were there, they weren't the smartest. And this is the weird part. Normally I don't say any of this, but it's your show, and I'm gonna bring everything here. I was living with a guy that had the same name as me, and I met him in a rehab.
Really?
Really fucking weird, man. I'm telling you, it gets weirder. Because some of my best stories, have stuff you can't talk about, but I can't. I gotta tell it. I'm on your show. I gotta tell it. So I'm up there living with this guy, had the exact same name as me. He was a diabetic, and he had his mom worked in New York. She was worked for a brain surgeon or some weird shit like that, right?
Really?
And yeah, man, this is it gets really, really, really fucking weird. The guy had an insulin pump, but this is when the electronic ones were very new, and it was technology. It was a thing, that he had. And I was up there. It was his girlfriend, and they were all in the room, using, and they were like, we'd gotten a little bit of stuff, and they're like, don't do all of that, because you haven't done anything a long time. Don't do all that. I'm like, I'm from the Baltimore area, blah, 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 whatever, So I get in there and I go into the bathroom to do my stuff, and they were out there. Well, before I went in there to do my thing, I said, do you guys know what to do if somebody overdoses? I always made sure that the people around me knew what to do, just in case. I'm like, do you know what to do?
Good idea.
And I'm like, do you know, do you guys know what to do? And they're like, no. I'm like, all right, well, if somebody overdoses, I said, put cold ice down their pants and the crotch area, and put them in the shower with cold water, and then, mouth to mouth if you have to. I went through the whole process real quick, and damn if it didn't happen. Right after I get done telling them that, I go in there to do my thing, and next thing I know, I'm coming to on a stretcher, being taken out of the room and down the stairs. But I remember seeing them put ice on me, put me in the shower, and I saw everything that they did. The mouth to mouth, the cold water, the ice, I saw everything. And down in Jersey, they don't give a shit. When they were taking me out on the stretcher, they were like, good thing your friends did what they did, because another, I think they said like 15 seconds, another 30, something like that, under a minute. They said, another few seconds and you would have been dead. And they were like, they basically saved your life. And I went to the emergency room, and they process you to make sure you're not crazy and let you out. I was I died and was out of there, and all this happened in less than an hour. And I'm walking. I don't know where. I just moved to Jersey City, and it's like, like New York, only worse. And so I don't know where I live. I'm having to walk down these blocks, and I'm all out of it. So it took me hours to find where I lived, and then I had to walk through all these fucked up neighborhoods. Because there it's Dominican, Italian, Black, Jamaican, everything segregated up there. So when I get back, I tell them what they did. I'm like, thank them or whatever. I don't know what I said, but they're like, how did you know that? You were unconscious.
You were out of body.
Yeah, I described to them exactly what they did, and they're like, how did you know that? You were unconscious all the way until like out the door down the stairs. Like I came back in when they were taking me down the stairs on the flat board. It's a flat, because in Jersey, Philly, places like that, the steps are really steep. You know what I mean? They're like the old school, really steep steps. So they put you on a board, one of the, it looks like a board, and then they carry you. It's got handles on it, and then they carry you down that. But that happened up there. And then the other thing that was me and the other Miles were at a park, using, but this was something different. Anyway, next thing I know, we're coming to, we're coming to, and it was daytime, but then when we came to, it was nighttime, and I looked over at him, and he was in his boxers, and he had juice spilt on him because he had had a juice cup when we were talking. Me and him were talking. We're both sitting there talking just like we are right now. And next thing, boom, we're both coming to. Well, I came to. I look over at him. He's in his boxers. The juice had spilt on him, but the cup was missing. And both of us were out of it. And we're like, what the hell just happened? Like, you know, it was nighttime and it was daytime before, and we were at a playground. And we finally, and luckily, this is in the middle of Jersey City. Okay. We're not talking about disappearing out in the woods. Okay. I'm talking about disappearing in the middle of the city. All right.
Yeah.
We were right there.
I got that it was just
Jersey City Medical Center. They Trump had bought them and turned them into really expensive condos. And this kid's mom had one there. So Jersey City Medical Center is huge, multiple buildings. It's giant, thousands and thousands. I mean, the energy there was crazy. When I first got there, I felt the energy. It felt like I was in a different reality when I went there. When I went to that whole Jersey and New York, but Jersey particular, it was a different reality that you step into.
Yeah.
But we came back to. He got and luckily his mom was like not too far away. It was the park that was there to where she was at, but he still had to do the walk of shame because there was they had the guys that wear uniforms and greet you when you come in, but they also make sure that, you know, if you live there, you know, like there was security, but like the bellhop type deal, you know. So we had to walk down the parking lot, like out the front where there's all these people and through there, boxers. white boxers. I mean, it was nuts. And we got up there to where his mom was, and she was just like shrugged it off. Oh, you know, you're doing, you know, whatever. And, you know, but, you know, his clothes, we never found him. Hang on 1 second. The kids. The kids got a boo-boo. I gotta give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna grab a Band-Aid real quick. 2 seconds.
Well, to fill the airtime, yeah, it gets real interesting whenever that you're taken and your clothes disappear. So you come back and you're wondering where everything went. And sometimes those clothes, what clothes you do have are inside out or backwards or not fastened properly, and you're wondering just what happened. So, and Miles has small kids, so having attention needs is kind of normal.
Sorry about that.
So we have about 20 minutes left, unless Bob doesn't show up. So
I think I can cover everything in 20 minutes.
Okay.
Basically, I'm highlighting for everyone, trying to paint the picture because, you know, I'm not your typical, you know, experiencer. So
well, I don't think there is a typical. I think most people sanitize their story before they go public with it.
Yeah. But so, you know, some of the best stories I got, you know, I gotta, I gotta throw some things out there. But every time, a lot of, there is a lot of bigger channels out there, and they don't lie about their drug use. A lot of the big channels, like when we were kids, everybody did stuff. But I'll tell you, when I did, experimented with substances when I was younger, never was I on something where I didn't have control or I did not know what was going on. I never got belligerent on anything. So, but I had experiences before, after, during. It didn't matter. Like when I was a kid, we lived in Manassas, Virginia, and that's where the battlefield, Manassas battlefield, and that whole area, it's not just Manassas, it's all the surrounding counties. The energy is just crazy. And I lived on that. The path that you could walk behind my house was the battlefield, and there was a creek, and that's where we played at. And we went missing there too. My friend, we this is, before
The same friend or a different one?
Different one.
Okay.
And it's only certain friends. It's only certain people that I had these experiences with. And we went missing there on the path. And this was when we were like elementary school. So then I didn't know what to call it. So I'm like, okay, what, I didn't know. I didn't know the incident that woke me up. Like I said, I was running the streets and doing things. I had no computer. I didn't know Facebook, what it was.
Well, Facebook showed up about 2005, I think.
Yeah. And my contact was 2007. So I didn't have a computer, didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't know what a contact, I didn't know what UFOs were. I didn't know what abduction was. I didn't really even watch sci-fi. I didn't watch movies. Like I said, I was busy doing street things. So we're out. I don't know if you know where Culpeper, Virginia is.
Vaguely.
Well, it's not far from Charlottesville. And it's like you have Northern Virginia.
In 2016, I did a cross-country trip. I ended up in DC and then went south to Greenville, South Carolina. So I passed through Virginia on the I-95.
Right. So it's like Culpeper is about hour and 20 minutes from DC. So you probably went through it. My roots. Okay, my last name, we are from Greenville. Like that, like we have a street named after us down there.
I have ancestors from Greenville.
Yeah.
I did not know that at the time I was there, or I would have been hanging out at the records office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't believe in coincidences at all. So
I had a wonderful friend of mine whose boyfriend had killed himself, and she was in need of someone there.
Yeah.
So that's why I was there.
So this is like the sort of when the mountains start in Virginia. Like you have Northern Virginia, like where I grew up was 20 minutes outside DC. But then the weird thing about Virginia and DC and Maryland is you can go from the city to the mountains in less than an hour. So it was around midnight. We were at a friend's house in the country part. There was country back roads. Everything was country. And I had lived, the mother of my oldest lived out there in the country part. So my grandparents, I was a few houses down from them visiting somebody, and she was pregnant. So there was no substances involved. I drank a lot back in the day. That was my thing. I drank a lot. and then did other stuff occasionally, but drinking was my main thing. But I wasn't even drinking. She was pregnant and I was driving. So we were over to friends. It was late. She's like, oh, I want to go home, or there's something I had to do. It was like 12:30 a.m. Okay. And
in the middle of the night?
Yeah.
Okay.
12 at night, 12 at night. I was a night owl back then. So the country
now.
me too. Me too. So normally it would take like maybe 10 minutes, depending on how quick I drove. And they were all windy back roads to get to the place that I was staying at. Like I would take back roads to get to the house and then to go to my friend's house where I was at. So all of these roads, you know how country windy back roads are, they all dead end 20 minutes max. They all have a T or come to a T or stop about after 20 minutes. So we're driving and I'm maybe just a few minutes in. And mind you, at the time, I didn't watch UFO stuff. I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. Nothing. I know absolutely nothing. I'm driving, and then I look in the rear view mirror, the one up here at the top, not the side mirrors, but the one in the middle. And I look, and I see this weird glowing orange. I still don't know how to describe it. It was, I don't know what the fuck it was. It was this glowing orange, almost like sunset, but it wasn't. It was an orange that I can't describe because I've never seen anything that looks like it, like the color and what this was. And I said she was pregnant. She was due for a C-section within the next 2 weeks, I think. I had my child right after this fucking happened. So it's not like she was a few months pregnant. She was like pregnant.
Like ready to pop.
Yeah. So I look in the rearview mirror. I say, what the fuck is that? And she's like, she's an atheist, mind you. She's an atheist. She's an atheist. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And she's like, pay attention to, keep your eyes on the road, basically, and fuck that, whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I turn my head around, all the way around. I turned my head all the way around to get a better look. Bam! Next thing I know, everything phasing back in. And it's like, when you're coming back, it's such a weird feeling. It's like vibration type weird shit, but we come back to, and I'd had weird shit happen to me my whole life, so I didn't like freak out. I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, but she's a tough atheist country girl. That's the best way I can describe her.
Okay.
Thick, tough, and she has this look on her face I'll never forget. It was like, it looked like all of your emotions combined together into one look. That's what it was. That's what it was.
It was all just too much.
And I mean, it was confusion, like what the fuck, and then finally, like, everything was really fast, but it seemed like slow motion. And she goes, what just happened? And I'm like, I don't know. And I looked down at the clock in the car. I looked at something to the clock. I looked down at the clock, and it was either 3 or 3:30. I know it was 3. It was either 3 or 3:30 a.m. All right. We left around 12, and it only takes 10, 15 minutes to get home, and all of the roads dead end at 20 minutes. And she was pregnant. None of us were using. None of us were drinking. And so we went home, and this is where it gets
okay.
That's where it gets a little weird. So this is where it gets confusing, because I didn't think about this, and I didn't find any of this out that this was real until 7 years later. Because this is why I told you about all the street stuff, because I was still doing street things. So it's not like I was into all of this stuff. I kept on going
Yeah.
about my life. I ended up doing some more time and other things. So it wasn't 7 years later until I was in that Oxford house that I told you about that I started to use the internet. And somebody in jail told me about the older guys were like, "Oh man, you got to do this Facebook, man. They got girls on there and everything." So I get out and I get on there, right?
Yeah.
And then for fun, I said, everybody thought I was nuts when I told them my contact story. So for fun, I type it in and boom, all this stuff starts popping up. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm not fucking crazy. But after that, this is where time gets confusing. Either that night or the next night, I can't remember if it was that same night because it was 3 a.m. I don't know if it was that night or the next night, but I went to sleep and I've always had a dream connection. When I first found out, I was in elementary school. I saw a kid get hit by a car and he was in a full body cast. I predicted that before it happened. And that's when I knew I had dream stuff. So the UFO thing, that night or the next, I had visions. I woke up sweating. And every time this happens, my partner won't wake up. Like somebody that normally wakes up like that really fast, they won't wake up.
When I'm taken, Lou is fast asleep and cannot wake up.
Yeah, you just got to shake him and stuff, man.
No, even then, shaking him, he doesn't wake up. It's like he's under some sort of a almost a drug.
They put him out.
Yeah, they put him out.
They put him out.
So,
well, I have three mothers, three separate mothers, but all of them, when I had this contact, they normally wake up easily and they don't wake up. So that night or the next night, I was in a craft. Okay. Now, mind you, at the time I wasn't into any of this stuff. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So but I was on some kind of craft, a small room, and I was screaming. I was like screaming bloody murder, like for my life. Like back, the only time I remember is when I was in that crazy school that I told you about, when kids would scream and have an episode. That's like what I was doing. All right. And I was telling them, you got to take me back. I'm having my first kid. I wasn't worried about that. What I was worried was that they weren't going to bring me back. You understand? And so at the time, obviously, there must have been something. There must have been some kind of contact prior to this, before this incident, because I wasn't concerned about seeing other beings. I was concerned about them not bringing me back, that I was having my kid. And I was screaming, you got to
remember what kind of beings they were?
Well, I still have not found somebody yet that I trust enough to go in with my memories and recover all of this. But I do have memory, and there was some short ones, and I think they were grays. But there was also, I described them when this first happened, before I knew any of this, what I know now. The way I first described them was humanish. That there was some that were short, but then there was something that was more human. Look, I call them humanish because it's fuzzy. I don't have a very clear picture, but there was humanish. They were humanish looking. And then I think there was the grays, and I had Eva Blanca. You know Eva? Well, Eva. She's down there in California. She does paintings of ETs. She does paintings, and she's done a lot of stuff for people's books and things like that.
I don't know everyone in the community. There's millions of us worldwide, so.
She's awesome, man. She's about your age. Yeah, she's about your age, but she's a really close friend, and she does pictures for people's books if they're writing a book on their experience. She does paintings, but she did a painting for me, and she's like, this is your, you know, she gets the visions, and she painted the ETs. It's 3 of them, but it looked, I didn't notice it first. It was 3 ETs, but it's actually one. It's actually one, and it's phased out as 3. So you know, but she was like, she's like, these are yours. She's like, these are not my ETs. She's like, these are yours. And she painted it on canvas, and you know, she doesn't do stuff for just anybody. Like, she did it for free. She did it for free and sent me this oil painting.
Sue Walker did a pair for me of a being that I was encountering for about 6 months, and they were pastels, and I ended up paying $300.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the usual. So if you know, if she gave them to you for free, figure that was what their value was.
Yeah. Yeah. I, you know, yeah, really good friend, man. You know, I like the level that you and me are friends on. I'm just like that with her. Before I met you, you know, really, but yeah, she was like, these are yours. Like, we talked, you know, and everything, and she had the vision and put it on and did that. I'll send you, when we get done, I'll send you a picture of it so you can get an idea.
Okay.
But so after that contact, I woke up sweating, and this is where I said time gets different, because we got taken at 12 midnight. But then me being on the craft screaming, you got to take me back. That was either that night or the next. I'm pretty sure it was maybe later on when I fell asleep, that, you know, after we got home. I'm pretty sure it was that night, but it might have been the next night. But that's what I'm saying. I was on the craft. You got to take me back. But that was after we got taken. You see, that's why I tell people, time is not what you think it is. You know, I'm on the crafts screaming, and this was after the missing time in the car.
Yeah.
So that, you know, that happened. The wife, not the wife, but the, you know, the mother of my oldest, she denies it. She denies it and tells me I'm crazy. Anytime I bring it up, she changes the subject immediately. One time I got her in the backyard of her house and told her word for word what happened, and she got white as a ghost, but she still denies it. But she, you know,
denial is a strong instinct when you're confronted with something that you just cannot deal with. Some people just cannot deal with this reality.
I spoke with her mother, and come to find out, her mom told me that, like, experiencers are in the family. I never knew that, because I never got along with her mom. But come to find out, it runs in the family, and I think they do these bloodlines on purpose. Like, you meet certain people on purpose for the hybrid program.
That's what I've been trying to talk about in between other topics. I've had 2 story arcs going this calendar year. One was the Montauk kids, and the other one was the bloodlines and their connections to the occult.
Yeah.
And so yeah, guys, I actually planned some of this stuff. Now, thank you very much for coming.
Anytime.
Thank you, audience, for listening. The guy who has the next show, Cowboy Bob, is already in the waiting room, and so we're going to let him have the room. Thank you,
Thanks for having me on, Petty.
So I'll send you.